I'm Mackenzie Wells, 29, the eldest daughter who poured her heart into our family business. Campbell's Home Decor was my late mother's legacy, a luxury interior design company that became my passion too. Then one day, my father handed control to my sister Amber's boyfriend Jake, a man with charm but zero experience. My MBA and 7 years of dedication meant nothing anymore. I walked away without a fight, but walking away didn't mean giving up. I was just waiting for the right moment. If you're watching this from a place where family has betrayed your trust, hit subscribe and stay with me. My story might give you the courage to stand up for yourself too. Growing up, I spent countless afternoons watching my mother Diana transform our basement into what would become the headquarters of Campbell's Home Decor. Mom had an eye for beauty that seemed almost magical. She could walk into any space and instantly visualize its potential, a gift she told me I had inherited. While other kids had bedtime stories, I had design magazines and fabric swatches. Mom would point out color palettes and explain why certain pieces worked together while others clashed. Design isn't just about making things pretty, Mackenzie, she would say. It's about creating spaces where life can happen beautifully. By the time I was 12, I could sketch room layouts and identify period furniture pieces that most adults couldn't name. Mom would take me to client meetings when I was old enough, introducing me as the future of Campbell's. Those words became my North Star. Our home was always warm and filled with love, but the business was undeniably the special bond between Mom and me. Dad, Robert Wells, was supportive but kept his distance from business decisions. His accounting practice kept him busy, and he was happy to let Mom pursue her passion while he handled our family finances. He would often say, "Your mother has the vision, and I make sure we can afford to make it happen." It worked for them. My younger sister Amber never showed interest in design. For years younger than me, she gravitated towards social activities and popularity. Mom tried to include her, but Amber would roll her eyes at fabric samples and mock my excitement over a perfectly executed room transformation. "It's just furniture," she would say, unable to see the artistry that Mom and I cherished. When Mom was diagnosed with aggressive cancer 5 years ago, everything changed. I had just finished my MBA after completing design school, working apprenticeships with renowned designers in New York and Chicago during summer breaks. I rushed home to be by her side, putting my career plans on hold to help run the business during her treatment. "Promise me you'll keep Campbell's going," she whispered during one of her final lucid moments. "It's not just a business. It's our heart and soul." I promised, never imagining how difficult keeping that promise would become. After she passed 3 years ago, I threw myself into growing Campbell's. Dad stepped back from his accounting practice to help with the financial side, while I managed everything else. Our client list expanded, and we moved from residential projects to commercial spaces, landing contracts with boutique hotels and upscale restaurants. I implemented everything I had learned during my education and apprenticeships, modernizing our approach while maintaining Mom's core philosophy of creating meaningful spaces. Things were going well until Amber brought Jake Elliott home for dinner about 18 months ago. Jake was handsome, charming, and quick to mention his Harvard MBA within minutes of meeting anyone. Dad was immediately impressed. "Finally, someone who speaks my language," he said, as if my MBA from Northwestern meant nothing. Jake started showing up at our office, offering unsolicited advice about how we should run things. "The luxury market is changing," he would say, leaning against my desk uninvited. "You need to be more aggressive with marketing. Target the nouveau riche who want to show off." This approach contradicted everything Mom had built. Our reputation was based on understated elegance and personalized service, not flashy designs for status seekers. But Dad began nodding along with Jake's suggestions, captivated by buzzwords and trendy business concepts. At first, I tried to be polite. Jake was dating my sister, and family harmony seemed important after losing Mom. But when he started examining our financial records and questioning my design decisions, I grew concerned. "Your overhead is too high," he commented one afternoon, flipping through reports Dad had shown him without my knowledge. "And you're not charging enough for your services. There's easy money being left on the table." "Our pricing reflects the value we provide," I explained patiently. "And our overhead includes quality materials and fair wages for skilled craftspeople. That's non-negotiable." Jake smiled in that condescending way that made my skin crawl. "That's cute, but business isn't about being nice. It's about maximizing profit." The tension came to a head during a family dinner 6 months ago. Jake announced he had some fresh ideas for Campbell's, as if he had any right to direct a company he had no stake in. Dad beamed with approval while Amber clutched Jake's arm possessively. "I've been looking at your portfolio," Jake said between bites of the roast I had spent hours preparing. "Your designs are good, Mackenzie, but they're a bit safe. People with money want to make statements these days." I placed my fork down carefully. "Our clients appreciate subtlety and craftsmanship. That's why they come to us instead of flashier firms." "Maybe," Jake shrugged. "But I think Robert agrees there's room for a new direction." I looked at my father, waiting for him to defend the business Mom had built, the business I had preserved and grown. Instead, he nodded enthusiastically. "Jake has some brilliant marketing strategies," Dad said. "He thinks we could double our revenue in a year with the right approach." That night, lying awake in my apartment, I had a sinking feeling that something fundamental was shifting in our family business. I just didn't realize how drastic that shift would be. 1 week later, Dad called an all-hands meeting at the office. This was unusual since we typically discussed business matters informally. When I arrived, I found Jake sitting at the head of the conference table, with Dad and Amber flanking him like proud parents. Our team of designers and project managers filled the remaining seats, looking as confused as I felt. "I've gathered everyone today to announce some exciting changes," Dad began, his voice unnaturally formal. "As you know, Campbell's has been successful for many years, but every business needs fresh energy to reach new heights." My stomach tightened as he continued. "That's why I'm pleased to announce that Jake Elliott will be joining us as the new managing director of Campbell's Home Decor, effective immediately." The room fell silent. Taylor, our head project manager who had been with Mom since the beginning, shot me a questioning glance. I couldn't respond. My mind was racing to process what was happening. "Jake brings valuable experience from his time at Wellington Investments and holds an MBA from Harvard," Dad continued proudly, as if Jake had built empires rather than spent 2 years at a mid-tier investment firm after graduation. Jake stood up, straightening his designer tie. "I'm honored to join this wonderful family business. I see tremendous potential for growth and innovation. I look forward to working with all of you to take Campbell's to the next level." His eyes never met mine during his rehearsed speech. When the meeting ended and staff filed out with uncertain murmurs, I stayed behind with Dad, Jake, and Amber. "Dad, can I speak with you privately?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. "Anything you have to say can be said in front of Jake and Amber," he replied. "We're all family here." "Fine," I said, taking a deep breath. "What just happened? How could you make such a significant decision without discussing it with me first?" "I've been running this company successfully for 3 years. Dad's expression hardened. "The decision has been made, Mackenzie. Jake has an MBA from Harvard and brings fresh perspectives we need." "I have an MBA too," I reminded him. "And I have 7 years of experience with this specific company and our unique market. Jake has none." "We need a man's perspective and leadership," Dad said, stunning me into temporary silence. "Most of our high-end clients are businessmen who respect dealing with another man." The sexism was so blatant I almost laughed. Mom built this company without that being an issue. And most of our clients actually appreciate our female perspective on design. "Times change," Dad said dismissively. "Jake understands the current business landscape better." Amber, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke. "Mackenzie, why can't you just be supportive? Jake is doing us a favor by taking on this responsibility." A favor. I couldn't hide my incredulity. He's being handed control of a successful company he didn't help build. That's not a favor, that's a gift. Jake cleared his throat. I understand you're emotional about this transition, Mackenzie. Change is hard. But I value your design expertise, and I hope you'll remain as our lead designer. We make a good team, with my business acumen and your creative eye. The condescension in his tone made my blood boil, but I maintained my composure. What exactly will my role be now? Design consultant, Dad said quickly. You'll focus on what you do best and leave the business decisions to Jake. Over the next 3 months, I watched helplessly as Jake systematically dismantled everything that made Campbell's special. He replaced our carefully cultivated supplier relationships with cheaper alternatives that compromised quality. He pushed for flashier designs that attracted attention but lacked substance and longevity. I tried reasoning with him during our project meetings. The Richardsons have been clients for 15 years. They won't want something this ostentatious for their lake house. Jake would smile patronizingly. Trust me, people want to impress their friends. This design will give them something to brag about. When the Richardsons rejected the concept, Jake blamed my presentation. You undermined the design with your lack of enthusiasm, he accused. One by one, our long-standing clients began taking their business elsewhere. The Morgans, who had been with us since Mom started the company, sent a kind but firm email explaining they would be working with another firm moving forward. The recent designs don't reflect the Campbell's aesthetic we've come to value, they wrote. I printed the email and brought it to Dad's office, finding him with Jake reviewing marketing materials for a rebranding that stripped away the elegant logo Mom had designed. We're losing our core clients, I said, placing the email on his desk. This is the 3rd cancellation this month. Dad barely glanced at it. We'll replace them with bigger clients. Jake has meetings with several developers next week. Those developers work on cookie-cutter luxury buildings. That's not what Campbell's stands for. Campbell's stands for whatever I say it stands for, Dad snapped. I own this company, Mackenzie. The word stung like a physical blow. Not we own this company, but I. As if Mom's vision and my years of dedication meant nothing. The final straw came when I overheard Jake and Amber laughing in the break room. She's so precious about her mother's legacy, Jake was saying. Business isn't about sentimentality. It's about profit. Maybe you're just jealous because Jake is more qualified, Amber said when she noticed me in the doorway. You had your chance to run things, and now it's our turn. That evening, I typed up my resignation letter. The company I loved had become unrecognizable, and staying would only prolong the pain. When I placed it on Dad's desk the next morning, he seemed more annoyed than upset. This is childish, Mackenzie. If you can't adapt to change, perhaps this is for the best. I packed my personal items into a box while Taylor watched with tears in her eyes. This isn't right, she whispered. Your mother would be heartbroken. I know, I said, hugging her goodbye. But I can't fight them anymore. As I walked out the doors of Campbell's Home Decor for what I thought was the last time, I felt a strange mix of grief and relief. I had lost my mother's legacy, but perhaps I had also been freed from an impossible situation. What I didn't realize then was that leaving would give me the perspective and distance I needed to eventually save everything Mom had built. Chicago welcomed me with anonymity and possibility. I rented a small apartment in Wicker Park, far enough from Michigan Avenue's design district to avoid running into industry connections, but close enough to remain in the loop. The first few weeks were a blur of grief and uncertainty. I cycled through anger, sadness, and doubt. Had I given up too easily? Should I have fought harder? But gradually, as winter turned to spring, I began to see my exile as an opportunity rather than a punishment. I updated my portfolio and started freelancing, taking small residential projects that allowed me to rediscover my passion for design without the weight of family complications. 3 months into my Chicago life, I received an email that would change everything. Grace Harrison, a legendary interior designer whose work had been featured in Architectural Digest for decades, was hosting a masterclass series, and my application had been accepted. Grace was a formidable presence, with silver haircut in a precise bob and an uncanny ability to identify promising talent. During our first session, she asked each participant to present their design philosophy. When my turn came, I spoke about creating spaces that tell the inhabitants' stories rather than imposing the designer's statement. Interesting, Grace said, studying me intently. Most young designers want to make their mark. You want to help others make theirs. After class, she invited me for coffee. There's something familiar about your aesthetic, she remarked. Did you train with Diana Campbell by any chance? The question caught me off guard. She was my mother, actually. Grace's eyes widened. Diana's daughter. I should have made the connection. We competed for the Westmore Hotel project in 2005. She won, deservedly so. Her work was exquisite. She paused, stirring her coffee. I heard she passed a few years ago. I'm sorry. Thank you, I said, fighting back tears. The company is still operating, but it's changed. Over the next hour, I found myself telling Grace everything about Campbell's decline under Jake's leadership. Instead of offering sympathy, she listened with analytical precision, occasionally asking pointed questions about business structure and client demographics. So they've abandoned quality and craftsmanship for quick profits and flashy designs, she summarized when I finished. A common mistake, but fatal in our industry. Reputation takes decades to build and moments to destroy. Exactly, I agreed. But my father doesn't see it. Fathers rarely do, Grace said cryptically. Then, with unexpected directness, would you like to apprentice with me, Mackenzie? Not as a student, but as an associate designer. I've been looking for someone with your sensibility. The offer was unexpected and thrilling. Working with Grace Harrison would be an education no design school could provide. I'd be honored, I said without hesitation. The apprenticeship proved transformative. Grace taught me to combine classic design principles with contemporary execution, to negotiate with contractors without compromising quality, and to manage client expectations without sacrificing vision. More importantly, she showed me how to run a design business with uncompromising integrity. Never chase trends or clients, she advised. Create work of such distinct quality that they chase you. While learning from Grace, I built my digital presence, creating a portfolio website and cultivating relationships with industry publications. I contributed articles to design blogs and judged student competitions, establishing myself as a voice in the field independent of Campbell's legacy. Meanwhile, I maintained a connection to my former life through Taylor, who still worked at Campbell's. Our weekly phone calls kept me informed about the company's deterioration. They lost the Blackwood Estate project, Taylor reported 6 months after my departure. Jake presented this gaudy concept with gold fixtures everywhere. William Blackwood actually laughed. What did Dad say? I asked. He blames the clients for being too conservative. But Jake's burning through our reputation faster than anyone anticipated. 3 more designers quit last week. As months passed, the reports grew more alarming. Jake had begun cutting corners on materials, substituting inferior products while charging premium prices. Projects were running over budget and behind schedule. Clients were not only leaving but speaking negatively about their experiences, something that had never happened during Mom's time or mine. The Henderson renovation was a disaster, Taylor told me nearly a year after I'd left. The custom cabinetry arrived with the wrong finish, and Jake tried to convince them it was an improvement over what they ordered. James Henderson threatened to sue. I winced, remembering how I'd nurtured that relationship over years of careful work. How bad is it financially? Your dad won't share the numbers anymore, but suppliers are calling about overdue payments. Jake keeps saying some big deal is about to close that will solve everything, but nothing materializes. I was digesting this information when Grace entered my workspace, holding her phone. Mackenzie, I just had the strangest call. A woman named Eleanor Blackwood is desperately trying to reach you. Says she worked with your mother years ago. Eleanor Blackwood was indeed a longtime client whose primary residence we had designed before Mom got sick. I called her immediately. "Mackenzie, thank goodness," she answered. "William and I are in a terrible situation. We hired Campbell's to design our new lake house based on our history with your mother and you. But this dreadful man Jake has created an absolute nightmare. The project is 6 months behind, nothing matches our specifications, and now he's demanding more money." My heart sank. "I'm so sorry, Eleanor. I don't work with Campbell's anymore. That's precisely why I'm calling. We fired them yesterday. We want to hire you directly. Would you consider taking over the project?" The request presented a moral dilemma. Taking a client from my family's business felt disloyal, even under the circumstances. But allowing the Blackwoods to suffer for Jake's incompetence seemed equally wrong. "I'd need to see what's been done so far," I said cautiously. "Everything. We'll pay whatever it takes to salvage this disaster." After consulting with Grace, who advised me to rescue the clients without trying to rescue the company, I accepted the Blackwoods project. Their satisfaction led to referrals, and soon I was fielding requests from other former Campbell's clients. A pattern emerged in their stories. Jake overpromised and underdelivered, then became defensive when questioned. Dad remained in denial, backing Jake's decisions despite mounting evidence of mismanagement. As my independent career flourished, I began to form a plan. I wasn't just building a new business. I was creating a lifeboat for the day Campbell's would inevitably sink. I just didn't know how soon that day would come. 14 months after leaving Michigan, I received a frantic call from Taylor. "You need to come back," she said without preamble. "Jake's been moving money around, taking out loans against company assets. I think he's been embezzling. And your dad refuses to see it." That night, I booked a one-way ticket home. My exile had given me strength, knowledge, and perspective. Now it was time to return and face the mess Jake had created before nothing remained of Mom's legacy. The flight back to Michigan gave me time to formulate a strategy. I couldn't simply confront Jake with accusations or approach my father with concerns he'd already dismissed. I needed concrete evidence and a position of strength. Most importantly, I needed to protect what remained of Campbell's reputation and client relationships. My first move after landing was securing office space. I found a converted warehouse 2 blocks from Campbell's original location, with exposed brick walls and massive windows that flooded the space with natural light. Mom would have loved it. I signed a 6-month lease and immediately began setting up what would become Wells Design Collective. Next, I reached out to key industry contacts I'd cultivated during my time with Grace. A furniture manufacturer agreed to expedited delivery timelines. A lighting designer offered exclusive pieces. A custom cabinetry workshop promised priority scheduling. These partnerships would allow me to deliver high-quality projects with efficiency that Jake couldn't match. With the business infrastructure in place, I began reconnecting with former clients, not to poach them, but to re-establish relationships that had been damaged under Jake's leadership. Coffee meetings and lunch appointments filled my calendar. I listened more than I spoke, gathering intelligence about Campbell's current operations while demonstrating that my design philosophy remained unchanged. "We were heartbroken when you left," Elaine Thompson told me over espresso. "The new designer they assigned us had no understanding of our aesthetic. We terminated the contract after the 2nd revision." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said sincerely. "I valued our working relationship." "So what exactly is Wells Design Collective?" she asked, eyeing my new business card. "A return to fundamentals," I explained. "Thoughtful design that prioritizes client vision and quality craftsmanship." "I'm starting small and selective." Elaine smiled. "Well, we're renovating our vacation home in Harbor Springs. Would you be interested in submitting a proposal?" By the end of my first week back, I had secured 3 substantial projects. More importantly, I had gathered troubling information about Campbell's financial situation. Multiple suppliers mentioned overdue payments. A contractor described shoddily executed work he'd been pressured to rush. A real estate developer revealed that Jake had been offering unsustainable discounts to win bids, then cutting corners to maintain profit margins. I needed inside information, so I invited Taylor for dinner at my apartment. She arrived looking exhausted, with dark circles under her eyes. "It's worse than I thought," she said after her first glass of wine. "Jake's been taking out loans using company assets as collateral. The custom furniture warehouse is mortgaged to the hilt. He's been paying old debts by taking on new ones, and the whole house of cards is about to collapse." "Has he been keeping 2 sets of books?" I asked. Taylor nodded. "Your father sees the sanitized version. Jake handles all financial reporting now." "And the design team?" "Down to 3 people from our original 12. Everyone with any talent has quit. They're using contract designers who don't understand the Campbell's standard." I took a deep breath. "Taylor, I'm planning to hire experienced designers for Wells Collective. Would you be interested?" She looked surprised. "Are you offering me a job?" "I'm offering you the position of project director. Same salary, better working conditions, and no Jake." Taylor didn't hesitate. "I'm in. And I know Riley and Connor would follow in a heartbeat." Within 3 weeks, I had assembled a core team of former Campbell's employees who brought with them knowledge of ongoing projects and client relationships. We established Wells Design Collective as a boutique firm specializing in thoughtful luxury, positioning ourselves as the antithesis of what Campbell's had become under Jake's leadership. The defining moment came when the prestigious Lakeside Museum announced they were seeking proposals for a complete interior renovation. This was exactly the type of high-profile cultural project that Campbell's had excelled at during Mom's leadership and mine. I prepared a comprehensive proposal that highlighted our team's experience and vision for transforming the museum's dated spaces while honoring its architectural heritage. I wasn't surprised to learn that Campbell's had also submitted a proposal. What did surprise me was being invited to the same final presentation day, with Campbell's scheduled immediately before us. As my team and I waited in the museum's anteroom, we could hear Jake's booming voice through the doors, promising revolutionary design concepts and Instagram-worthy moments throughout the visitor experience. When the doors opened, Jake emerged looking confident, faltering momentarily when he saw me. "Mackenzie, didn't expect to see you here." His eyes narrowed as he recognized Taylor and Riley behind me. "I see you've been busy poaching staff." "Just providing professional opportunities," I replied calmly. "Good luck with your proposal." Inside the presentation room, the museum board looked underwhelmed by whatever they had just seen. I recognized the museum director, Dr. Franklin, who had worked with Mom on a previous project. "Ms. Wells, we were surprised to receive your proposal under a new company name," he said as we set up. "I've established Wells Design Collective to continue the design philosophy and quality standards that Campbell's was originally known for," I explained diplomatically. "Our team includes several designers who worked on your previous renovation under my mother's direction. Our presentation focused on enhancing visitor experience through thoughtful space planning and lighting design, creating contemplative areas that would complement the artwork rather than compete with it. We presented material samples, lighting concepts, and detailed budgets with realistic timelines." When we finished, Dr. Franklin removed his glasses. "This is precisely the approach we were hoping for." The contrast with the previous presentation couldn't be more stark. 2 days later, we received word that Wells Design Collective had been awarded the museum contract. Local design publications covered the story, noting that the daughter of Campbell's founder had returned with her own firm to secure a prestigious project. That evening, my phone rang with my father's number. "What the hell do you think you're doing?" he demanded without greeting. "You're deliberately undermining our family business." "I'm running my own design firm, Dad. I'm not responsible for Campbell's losing the museum contract. You took our employees and our clients." I hired designers who were unhappy, and I accepted projects from clients who approached me. That's business. It's betrayal, he snapped. Your mother would be ashamed. The accusation stung, but I held firm. Mom built Campbell's on quality, integrity, and genuine relationships. I'm honoring those values. Can Jake say the same? Dad hung up without answering. Later that night, Amber called. You need to back off, she said, her voice tight. Jake says you're trying to sabotage Campbell's out of spite. I'm building my own business, Amber. If that's threatening to Jake, perhaps he should examine why. He says you're spreading rumors about financial problems. I haven't needed to spread rumors. The industry is small, and word gets around when suppliers aren't being paid. There was a pause. Is that true? About suppliers not being paid? The doubt in her voice was the first crack in her unwavering support of Jake. Ask Dad to show you the actual books, not whatever reports Jake is presenting. The collision course between Wells Design Collective and what remained of Campbell's Home Decor reached its peak at the annual Midwest Design Excellence Awards. Both firms had submitted projects, and both had been nominated in the residential renovation category. The gala event brought together everyone in the regional design community. I arrived with my team, dressed in a midnight blue gown that had been Mom's favorite. Across the room, I spotted Jake, Amber, and my father at the Campbell's table. Dad looked older than when I'd left, the strain of the business troubles evident in his posture. When our category was announced, tension filled the room. The presenter opened the envelope. The award goes to Wells Design Collective for the Blackwood Lake House Resurrection. As I accepted the award, I acknowledged the Blackwoods' trust and my team's dedication. Without directly mentioning Campbell's, I spoke about upholding design traditions while embracing innovation. From the corner of my eye, I saw Jake leave the table abruptly, my father staring after him with a puzzled expression. Later, as guests mingled during dessert, Eleanor Blackwood approached my father. I couldn't hear their conversation, but Dad's face grew increasingly troubled as she spoke, occasionally glancing in my direction. For the first time, I saw doubt cross his features. The evening marked a turning point. Within days, industry whispers about Campbell's financial troubles grew louder. I learned through Taylor's contacts that Jake was attempting to sell the company's valuable material library and antique furniture collection, assets that had been accumulated over decades and formed part of Campbell's design heritage. Time was running out. If I wanted to save anything of Mom's legacy, I would need to act quickly and decisively. Jake's response to losing the museum contract and design award was swift and vindictive. He began calling my clients, offering dramatic discounts to lure them back to Campbell's. When that failed, he shifted to more underhanded tactics. I just got the strangest call from the Harrison project contractor, Riley reported one morning. He said he received an email claiming our firm is under investigation for permit violations. The email came from an anonymous account, but the language matches Jake's proposal style exactly. These sabotage attempts were annoying but ultimately ineffective. More concerning was what we discovered when Connor's friend at the county records office called with disturbing news. Jake filed paperwork to sell the Campbell's warehouse property, Connor announced, placing the documents on my desk. The building your mother converted when she first expanded the business. I examined the listing agreement with growing alarm. The warehouse, which housed Campbell's custom furniture inventory and material library, was being offered at well below market value, suggesting desperation. He's liquidating assets, I concluded. But why sell the warehouse when it's essential to operations? The answer came from an unexpected source. During a site visit to the Thompson renovation, I encountered Madison Reed, a junior designer who had stayed at Campbell's after my departure. Mackenzie, thank goodness, she said, pulling me aside. I've been wanting to contact you, but Jake monitors our communications. The warehouse sale isn't the half of it. He's been moving valuable inventory out at night. Antique pieces, custom furniture for client projects, even the material archives. No one knows where it's going. Have you told my father? Madison shook her head. Jake handles all communication with Robert now. None of us have direct access. This information pushed me to take a calculated risk. I needed to see Campbell's financial records for myself, but I had no legitimate access. However, I knew someone who did. I called Amber and suggested meeting for coffee, framing it as a sister reconnection rather than a business discussion. To my surprise, she agreed. The coffee shop was neutral territory, a place we'd frequented during high school. Amber arrived looking thinner than I remembered, her normally perfect appearance slightly disheveled. "You look well," she said defensively, as if my apparent success was a personal affront. "Thanks. How are you really?" I asked, setting aside prepared talking points in favor of genuine concern. Her carefully maintained facade cracked slightly. "Fine. Busy. The business takes a lot of Jake's time." "And how is the business?" Amber stirred her latte unnecessarily. "Great. Jake has big plans." "That's not what I've heard," I said gently. "Industry contacts tell me Campbell's is in serious financial trouble." "Your contacts are wrong," she snapped. "Jake says we're in a temporary cash flow situation while investing in expansion." "Amber, you're my sister. Despite everything, I care about you and Dad. I'm worried that Jake isn't being honest about Campbell's finances. You're just jealous because Jake is succeeding where you couldn't. If he's succeeding, why is he selling the warehouse below market value? Why are suppliers not being paid? Why has the staff been reduced to a skeleton crew?" Amber's hand trembled slightly as she set down her cup. "Those are strategic decisions. They're desperation moves," I countered. "Amber, please just look at the actual financial records. Not the reports Jake prepares for Dad, but the real books." "You think I don't know what's happening in my own company?" she demanded, but uncertainty had crept into her voice. "I think Jake is very good at controlling information. Just promise me you'll check. For Mom's sake, if not for mine." After Amber left, I wasn't sure if I'd made progress or pushed her further into Jake's camp. My answer came 3 days later when she appeared at my office unannounced, looking pale and shaken. "I need to talk to you," she said urgently. "Not here." We drove to a park where we'd played as children, finding a secluded bench far from other visitors. "You were right," Amber admitted, her voice barely audible. "I found discrepancies in the accounts. Large sums transferred to accounts I don't recognize. Client deposits that never made it into the main business account." My stomach tightened. "Did you confront Jake?" I tried asking casual questions. "He got angry, said I was being influenced by you." She looked at me directly for the first time. "Mackenzie, I think he's been stealing from the company." "From Dad. From us. Have you told Dad?" Amber shook her head miserably. "Jake has convinced him that you're spreading rumors to destroy Campbell's out of revenge. Dad won't listen to anything negative about Jake now. It's like he's under some spell." "We need concrete evidence," I said. "Something Dad can't ignore." "I took these," Amber said, pulling a USB drive from her purse. "Copies of the real financial records. I don't understand all of it, but I know something's very wrong." That night, I reviewed the files with growing horror. Jake hadn't just been mismanaging Campbell's, he had been systematically looting it. Client deposits diverted to personal accounts. Company credit used for luxury purchases. Loans taken against business assets without proper authorization. The company that had taken my mother decades to build was being hollowed out from within. I needed professional help to untangle the financial web Jake had created. Nathan Parker, an accountant friend from business school, agreed to review the records. "This is textbook embezzlement," Nathan concluded after examining the files. "He's been skimming from every revenue stream and covering his tracks by manipulating the reports your father sees." "How bad is it?" "Based on these numbers, Campbell's is technically insolvent. The only thing keeping it afloat is new client deposits, which he's using to cover old obligations instead of funding the actual projects." "A Ponzi scheme," I said, the full magnitude of the situation becoming clear. "Essentially. And like all such schemes, It's about to collapse. These latest asset sales are a desperate attempt to keep the balls in the air, but it's just delaying the inevitable. Armed with Nathan's analysis, I faced a difficult decision. Taking the evidence to my father risked being dismissed again, but going to the authorities would destroy any chance of salvaging Campbell's. The family business was now beyond saving, but perhaps my father's reputation and financial security could still be protected if we acted quickly. I arranged to meet with Sean Montgomery, the attorney who had handled Mom's estate and Campbell's legal matters for years. After reviewing the evidence, Sean confirmed my fears. This level of financial malfeasance could result in criminal charges, he warned. Not just against Jake, but potentially against your father as the company owner if it appears he was complicit. Dad wasn't complicit, I insisted. Just willfully blind. Unfortunately, the law doesn't always recognize that distinction, especially when fiduciary responsibilities are involved. What's our best course of action? Sean considered carefully. Approach your father privately with this evidence. Give him the opportunity to address the situation internally before it becomes a legal matter. If Jake can be removed and arrangements made to satisfy creditors, criminal charges might be avoided. I left Sean's office with a heavy heart, knowing the confrontation with my father couldn't be postponed any longer. The family business my mother had built with love and integrity was beyond saving, but perhaps my father could be spared the public humiliation of its collapse if he acted quickly. The time for strategic patience had ended. With Amber's reluctant agreement to support me, I prepared to present the evidence to my father and force him to finally see the truth about the man he had trusted over his own daughters. Armed with Nathan's financial analysis and Sean's legal advice, I asked Amber to arrange a family dinner at Dad's house. No Jake, I insisted. Tell Dad it's important family business. Dad was suspicious when I arrived, his greeting stiff and formal. Amber says you have something important to discuss. If this is another attempt to undermine Jake's leadership. It's not about leadership anymore, Dad. It's about survival. I placed a folder on the dining table. These are copies of Campbell's actual financial records, not the reports Jake has been showing you. Dad reluctantly took the folder. Where did you get these? I got them, Amber said quietly. I found them when Jake was out of town last week. Betrayal flashed across Dad's face. You went behind Jake's back? Please just look at them, I urged. Nathan Parker, a forensic accountant, has analyzed everything and highlighted the discrepancies. For the next hour, we sat in tense silence as Dad reviewed the documents, his expression shifting from skepticism to confusion to dismay. When he finally looked up, he appeared to have aged 10 years. This can't be right, he said, voice barely audible. These transfers, the loan documentation, none of this was authorized. Jake has been systematically embezzling from Campbell's, I explained gently. He's diverted client deposits, taken unauthorized loans against company assets, and used company funds for personal expenses. The business is effectively bankrupt, Amber added, tears streaming down her face. He's been lying to all of us. Dad shook his head in disbelief. Why would he do this? He's family. He's not family, Dad, I corrected. And he never cared about Campbell's or what it represents. He saw an opportunity and took advantage of your trust. Dad's hands trembled as he closed the folder. I've been a fool. You wanted to believe in him, Amber said, placing her hand over his. We all did, at first. What happens now? Dad asked, looking suddenly small and uncertain. We've consulted with Sean Montgomery, I explained. He recommends removing Jake immediately and conducting a full audit to determine the extent of the damage. There may be legal consequences, but addressing it proactively will help mitigate them. Dad nodded slowly. I'll call Jake right now. He needs to return the company files and passwords immediately. I think we should do this in person, I suggested. At the office, with Sean present. The confrontation was scheduled for the following morning. Dad, Amber, Sean, and I arrived early to prepare. Nathan joined us to address any financial questions that might arise. The atmosphere was funeral-like as we gathered in the conference room that had once hosted creative design discussions and client celebrations. Jake arrived precisely at 9, his confident stride faltering when he saw all of us waiting. "What's this, a family meeting?" "You should have told me, Robert. I would have brought coffee and pastries." "Sit down, Jake," Dad said, his voice firmer than I'd heard in months. "We need to discuss some financial discrepancies that have come to light." Jake's smile remained fixed, but his eyes darted between us. "Financial discrepancies? I just reviewed the quarterly numbers with you last week. Everything's on track for our best year yet." "Not according to the actual books," I said, sliding copies of the incriminating documents across the table. "These show a very different picture." Jake barely glanced at the papers. "I don't know what amateur analysis you've done, Mackenzie, but these numbers are being taken out of context. Business finances are complex, especially during an expansion phase." "Expansion?" Dad's voice rose. "The company is insolvent. You've been stealing client deposits and diverting funds to personal accounts." "That's a serious accusation," Jake said, his casual tone at odds with the beads of sweat forming on his forehead. "And completely unfounded. I've made some necessary financial adjustments to position Campbell's for future growth." "Adjustments like the $180,000 transferred to your personal account labeled as supplier payments?" Nathan asked, highlighting the transaction on his copy of the records. Jake's facade began to crack. "Temporary transfers for tax efficiency. All documented and above board." "Or the loans taken against company assets without board approval?" Sean added. "Those alone constitute fraud, Mr. Elliott." Jake's expression hardened as he realized the depth of evidence against him. "Robert, this is clearly an orchestrated attack by your daughters. They've been trying to undermine me from day one, jealous that you recognized my superior business acumen." Dad remained unmoved. "The numbers speak for themselves, Jake. You've betrayed my trust and nearly destroyed my family's business." "Amber," Jake turned to my sister pleadingly. "You know I've been working tirelessly for Campbell's future. Don't tell me you believe these distortions." Amber wouldn't meet his gaze. "I saw the records, Jake. I found your hidden files." For a moment, genuine shock registered on Jake's face, quickly replaced by calculation. "So that's how it is. The Wells women closing ranks." He leaned back, a new strategy forming. "Fine. You want me out? Buy me out. I own 20% of Campbell's now, per the agreement Robert signed last year." This was news to me. I looked at Dad in alarm. "The ownership transfer was predicated on performance benchmarks that haven't been met," Sean interjected smoothly. "And it would be invalidated by the fraudulent activities documented here regardless." Jake's composure finally shattered. "You think you've won? Campbell's is already dead. I've been the only thing keeping it afloat while your precious Mackenzie has been poaching clients and staff." "Actually," I countered, "I've been building a successful business based on the principles this company was founded on." "Principles you abandoned for quick profits? You sabotaged me from the beginning." Jake shouted, desperation entering his voice. "You and your outdated design philosophy. The market wanted innovation, not your mother's tired ideas." The mention of Mom ignited Dad's dormant anger. "Get out," he said, rising to his feet. "You're fired, effective immediately. Sean will contact you regarding potential legal actions, which will depend on your cooperation with the financial investigation." "You can't fire me. I resigned weeks ago," Jake declared in a last attempt to save face. "I've already accepted a position with a real design firm in New York. Campbell's was just a stepping stone." "Then consider your association with this stepping stone terminated," Dad replied coldly. "Surrender your keys and company devices before you leave." After Jake stormed out, the silence in the conference room was deafening. The confrontation had provided a moment of vindication, but it didn't change the dire reality of Campbell's situation. "What happens now?" Amber asked quietly. Sean cleared his throat. We need to assess the full financial damage and notify affected clients. There will be difficult conversations with creditors and suppliers. Can Campbell survive this? Dad asked, looking directly at me for the first time in months. I wished I could offer reassurance, but honesty was needed now more than ever. Not in its current form. The financial damage is too severe, and the reputation has been significantly compromised. Dad nodded slowly, accepting this truth with surprising calmness. Your mother built something beautiful, and I let it be destroyed. I should have trusted you, Mackenzie. I was wrong, and I'm sorry. His apology, so long awaited, brought unexpected tears to my eyes. I'm sorry too, Dad. I should have fought harder instead of walking away. What would Diana do now? He asked, a question that hung in the air between us. After a moment, I realized we all knew the answer. Mom would find a way to rebuild, not from ego or pride, but from love for the work itself and the people it served. The path forward suddenly became clear. In the weeks following Jake's departure, the full extent of Campbell's deterioration became painfully clear. Beyond the financial devastation, which included nearly $1.2 million in misappropriated funds, the company's reputation had suffered irreparable damage. Incomplete projects, inferior materials, and broken promises had tarnished the Campbell name that Mom had worked so diligently to establish. Dad, Amber, and I gathered at the house for what felt like a funeral planning session rather than a business meeting. The dining room table was covered with financial statements, legal documents, and lists of outstanding obligations. The lawyers say bankruptcy is our best option, Dad said, his voice hollow. It would limit personal liability and provide some protection from creditors. I looked around the room, at the family photos on the walls and Mom's design awards displayed in the cabinet. Bankruptcy might make financial sense, but it would mean the final death of her dream. There might be another way, I said carefully. A different path that honors what Mom built while acknowledging the reality we face. Dad and Amber looked up expectantly. Wells Design Collective has been profitable from day one. We have a strong client base, a talented team, and most importantly, we operate with the same values and standards that made Campbell's successful originally. What are you suggesting? Dad asked. A merger of sorts. Not of the legal entities, since Campbell's debt burden makes that impossible, but of the essence of both companies. We could create a new business structure that preserves the best elements of Campbell's while building on what I've established with Wells. Amber looked skeptical. After everything that's happened, you'd be willing to work with us again? Not just work with you, I clarified. Create something new together, with clear roles based on our respective strengths. Dad's financial oversight, your networking abilities, and my design and operational leadership. Dad's eyes brightened for the first time in months. Campbell and Wells Design. Your mother would like that. The merger wasn't simple. It required careful legal structuring to ensure Wells Design Collective wouldn't inherit Campbell's debts while still allowing us to service existing Campbell's clients who wished to continue their projects. Sean and Nathan worked tirelessly to create an arrangement that would satisfy creditors while protecting our new venture. While the legal details were being finalized, we faced the more immediate challenge of rebuilding trust with clients, suppliers, and the design community. I suggested transparency as our guiding principle. We need to acknowledge what happened and take responsibility, even for actions that weren't ours, I explained during a strategy session. No excuses, just a clear commitment to making things right. Dad nodded. I'll personally speak with every client Jake misled. They deserve that much. Those conversations were difficult but necessary. Some clients were understandably angry and chose to walk away. Others, particularly those with long-standing relationships with the family, were willing to give the new enterprise a chance. William Blackwood, whose lake house had become Wells Design Collective's signature project, became an unexpected ally. Diana helped us create our primary residence 20 years ago, he told Dad during a reconciliation meeting. We never doubted Mackenzie's abilities, just the direction Campbell's had taken. If you're reuniting forces, we'd like to discuss our downtown office renovation. This vote of confidence from a prominent client helped open doors with others. Gradually, project by project, we began rebuilding what had been lost. The physical merging of our operations provided a symbolic fresh start. We moved into a new space that combined elements from both companies, the elegant client reception area from Campbell's and the collaborative work studios from Wells. Mom's original drafting table, which Dad had kept in storage, became the centerpiece of my new office. She always said her best ideas came while working at this table, Dad remarked as we positioned it near the windows. She'd be proud to see you using it now. Amber, who had surprised everyone by enrolling in a design management course, took charge of client relations. Her natural social skills, now directed with genuine purpose rather than supporting Jake's machinations, proved invaluable in rebuilding community connections. I never really gave design a chance before, she admitted one evening as we reviewed material samples for an upcoming presentation. I was jealous of your connection with Mom through the business, so I deliberately avoided it. She would have loved seeing you involved now, I assured her. Better late than never. 6 months after Jake's departure, our new company, officially named Campbell Wells Design, secured the contract that would mark our true rebirth, a comprehensive redesign of the historical Westmore Hotel, the same project Mom had won against Grace Harrison years earlier. The evening after the contract signing, Dad, Amber, and I sat in the small garden behind the house, sharing a bottle of wine. I keep thinking about your mother, Dad said, gazing at the rose bushes she had planted. When she started Campbell's, everyone told her it wouldn't last 6 months. She proved them wrong through sheer determination and talent. She also knew when to adapt, I added. Remember how she embraced digital design tools when everyone else was still working exclusively with hand drawings? She wasn't afraid of change when it served the greater vision. That's what we're doing now, Amber observed, honoring her legacy by adapting it for the future. Dad reached across the table and took my hand. I failed you, Mackenzie. I let an outsider come between us and nearly destroy everything your mother built. I should have trusted you. We all made mistakes, I acknowledged. I should have stayed and fought instead of walking away. You didn't really walk away though, did you? Amber said with newfound insight. You were preparing for this moment, building something that could eventually save what mattered most about Campbell's. Perhaps she was right. My time in Chicago with Grace, building Wells Design Collective, hadn't been just about starting over. It had been about growing stronger, learning new skills, and gaining the perspective needed to eventually reclaim and reinvent my mother's legacy. The official relaunch of Campbell Wells Design was held in the gallery space of the Lakeside Museum, surrounded by the renovation work that had marked the beginning of my return. Industry colleagues, clients, and friends gathered to celebrate what felt like both an ending and a beginning. Dad surprised me by asking to say a few words. Standing before the assembled guests, he spoke with renewed confidence. My late wife Diana used to say that good design isn't about creating perfection, it's about finding beauty in imperfection. Our family and our business have weathered imperfection and come through stronger for it. Today, I'm proud to introduce the leadership that will carry Diana's vision forward. My daughter Mackenzie Wells, whose talent and perseverance saved her mother's legacy, and her sister Amber, whose fresh perspective helps us connect with new generations of clients. Together, they represent the best of Campbell Wells Design, rooted in tradition but always evolving. As applause filled the room, I felt Mom's presence more strongly than I had in years. Not as a painful absence, but as an enduring influence that had guided me even during our darkest times. Later that evening, I found myself alone in the office, sitting at Mom's drafting table. Running my fingers along the worn edge where her hand had rested thousands of times, I felt a sense of completion. The business she had started had nearly been destroyed, but its essence, the commitment to creating spaces of beauty and meaning, had survived. My journey from trusted daughter to ousted heir to company savior had taught me that legacy isn't something static to be preserved. It's a living thing that must be nurtured, adapted, and sometimes completely reimagined. By letting go of Campbell's home decor as it had existed, we had created space for Campbell Wells' design to emerge, something that honored the past while embracing the future. As I turned off the lights and prepared to leave, I whispered, "We did it, Mom." Not exactly as planned, but maybe even better. The journey had been painful, but the lesson was profound. Sometimes we need to lose something to truly understand its value. And sometimes, from the broken pieces of what was, we can build something even stronger than before. What painful loss have you experienced that eventually led to unexpected growth? I'd love to hear your stories of resilience and rebirth in the comments below. And if you found my journey meaningful, please like, subscribe, and share with others who might need encouragement during their own difficult transitions. Thank you for listening, and remember that sometimes our greatest setbacks are actually setting us up for an even better comeback.